So I've made like 4 multi-hour tutorials about camera tracking, but apparently that was a waste of time because now there is an add-on that claims to do a one-click solution for camera tracking. So I recorded some footage to test it. It is time to film the beautiful footage. Here we go. Okay, there is some 3D footage. Can I put 3D objects into it? And this is what we're going to be motion tracking, but first let's see the competition. So this is Senthai's, a program that has its own auto track button. I'm going to enable fine tune and run tracker cleanup and click auto. And now we have a camera solve with a solve error of 0.8 pixels. You want to be under 1 pixel, the lower the better. And I should be able to add a 3-dimensional object to this, and yeah, indeed it tracks well. Let's see how flaxtrax does instead. Now before we can use this uses PNG sequences, so we're going to need to convert into that. Not very automated, but we'll let it slide. I'm in the sequencer. I'm going to import in my footage. I'm going to set my out point so that we don't go over the footage. Set the render options to PNG, and I'm going to make a folder where we're going to render this. Control F12 to render, and now we're going to have a PNG sequence. So again, movie clip editor. This time we are going to import in a image sequence. Hit A to import everything. I'm just going to tell Blender that this is 30 frames per second, and in theory, we should now be able to auto track this. So we need the naming convention, so I'm going to Control C over this and then hit Control V to bring in the name. And here's all the settings that we care about. Let's go through all of them. The first one is the maximum solve error. Obviously, you want this to be under 1, close to 0, but I imagine the smaller this number is, the longer it takes to compute. So because Senthai's had an error of 0.8, let's at least try to go for 0.7. I can now put in my focal length, how zoomed in I was on the footage, but I don't know what that is. So I'm going to use the auto focal length feature. That should guess it for me. And instead of setting these tracker settings, which is what this pattern and search size are, I'm just going to use the recommended settings to see how those do. Start auto tracking and solving. Okay, so it made a bunch of features, but apparently I made a mistake. I let this go on for more like frames than it should have. So I'm just going to delete all of this and then go to track, set scene frames, and prefetch. And now let's try it again now that I've done the correct thing. Okay, so we have a camera solve with a solve error of 0.66. So it indeed made a solve error of under 0.7. And now I just want to check the quality of this track. And we can do that by going to the graph. This is the data for our X and Y trackers. And indeed, it called out all the bad trackers. You can see how all of these are pretty bundled together. If we wanted probably more filtering, I'd bring down this maximum solve error. Okay, so go to the solve panel, and I'm going to select 3 trackers that are on the floor, since that's how I want to orient this, and just select floor. Hit setup tracking scene, and let's see how this did. Go into your camera, and indeed this is sticking on, but it's too zoomed in. So again, I'm going to select 2 trackers, and then for that, I'm going to hit 3 and set scale again. Bigger the number, the more zoomed out you are. And yeah, this is a decent camera solve, and indeed it was pretty much one button. Some recommendations I would make to the add-on developer is everything I just did with the floor feature and setup tracking scene and all this, I would put that inside your auto tracker panel. So really the point of this is to do your tracking and solving for you, which it does. And in true CG Matter fashion, I'm now going to show you how you could do this yourself. Of course, it's not going to be a one-click solution, which is the point of the add-on, but just so you know how I think it works under the hood. And what we're going to do instead of like adding trackers and like tracking manually and all this is we are going to take our own automated approach. So I'm just going to enable normalize and hit detect features, which will add some features automatically. I'm going to bring down the threshold so we have more of these trackers and hit Control T. Again, I forgot the set scene frames and prefetch, very important. I'm going to Control L to lock in these trackers, so now you can see we have them. And just to get more trackers, I'm going to go to the last frame, detect features, Shift Control T, and Control L to lock. We need to see if any of these trackers are bad, so I'm going to go to the graph editor, and indeed some of them are bad, so I'm just going to manually hit X to delete them, go to solve, and I'm going to enable focal length so I can guess my focal length and solve camera motion, which gave us an error above 1 pixel. And this is where I think the auto tracker shines, honestly, because getting this solve error below 1 does require work. And the way I would fix this is I would select all my trackers with A, and then in clip display, go to info, which gives you all this text. Point being, it's going to tell you which of these trackers are bad. So since our solve error is 1 pixel, a tracker with an error, and this is the error of just a tracker being 1.6, isn't ideal. So for this tracker, I would go to track and go to the weight, which basically says how much is this going to contribute. I'm going to select 0.5, disable focal length, and solve again. And now we went down to 1.06, so not a big difference. But now you can see this has a error of 0.87, and then you kind of just like play ping pong with this. But overall, I'm impressed with this auto tracker. It does take a lot of this workflow that might take 20-30 minutes and reduces it to like 2 minutes, which if you're doing camera tracking, especially if you don't know what you're doing, that could be valuable. So you can get this product over at the Blender Market, and full transparency, I was given a copy for free in exchange for telling you how it works, and there's an affiliate link in the description. And thank you, Axel Olsen, for making a Blender add-on.